I never planned to fall in love with two women. And I definitely never imagined they'd both be pregnant, at the same time, with my children. As their bellies grow, so does the weight of my lies. Secrets, jealousy, and unexpected bonds begin to unravel everything I thought I knew about love and family. This is the story of how my double life became a ticking time bomb, with two tiny heartbeats at the center of it all. I always thought news like that would come with a symphony. You know, violin swelling in the background, my wife crying with joy, me lifting her off the floor in a romantic spin. That's how it happens in movies. But life prefers the sound of a toilet flushing, the buzz of an electric toothbrush, and the deafening silence of a post-heartbeat. It was a Tuesday morning. Just another ordinary day, until it wasn't. "Babe," her voice cracked from the bathroom. I looked up from my phone, coffee halfway to my lips. There was something about the way she said it, soft, fragile. I stood slowly, already feeling that something was off. She stood in the doorway holding a stick like it was radioactive. Her hand shook. 2 pink lines. I didn't even need to ask. I smiled, and for a second, I meant it. We're having a baby." She nodded, tears forming. We hugged. I told her I loved her. And I did. I still do. But as we embraced, something sour crawled into the pit of my stomach. Because just the day before, I'd gotten the same exact news from my other wife. Yeah. I know what you're thinking. What kind of man has 2 wives? And worse, what kind of man gets them both pregnant within a week of each other? That would be me. I didn't plan for this. I didn't want it to happen this way. But love doesn't care about blueprints. It crashes through the windows when you least expect it and leaves you building your future from the broken glass. They didn't know about each other. Not really. Not yet. And now, the clock was ticking. As I held my first wife, I felt her belly, still flat, still innocent. And I realized that every heartbeat growing inside her was an echo of a lie I hadn't yet told. I kissed her forehead, told her we'd be okay. I wish I'd believed it. Because this was only the beginning. There's an art to deception. Not the malicious kind, at least, that's what I told myself, but the kind you convince yourself is for someone else's protection. That was the tightrope I walked. 2 lives. 2 women. And now, 2 unborn children. 1 slip, and everything would fall apart. I spent that week pretending. Pretending I wasn't waking up in one bed while dreaming of the other. Pretending I could compartmentalize 2 entire lives without losing myself in the seams. Elena, my first wife, glowed like the sunrise. She kept one hand on her stomach like she could already feel the flutter of life. She read baby books, circled due dates on the calendar, and whispered names at night when she thought I was asleep. Meanwhile, Camille, my second wife, was more cautious, more private. She didn't talk about names yet. She didn't make promises. She just watched me with those sharp, knowing eyes that made me feel like a child caught in the act of stealing. Camille knew something was off. She didn't say it outright, but she didn't need to. "You're distant," she said one night as I slipped back into bed beside her, later than I should have. "You come home smelling like cinnamon." "I don't bake." I told her it was a new candle in the office. She didn't believe me. But she didn't push it. Yet. Every day felt like a performance. One breakfast with Elena, rubbing her back while she vomited through her first trimester. One dinner with Camille, holding her while she cried over the cramps that scared her half to death. I told them the same comforting words, wore the same exhausted smile, played the same tired role. I didn't have a plan. God, I wish I had. I was juggling fire, and the flames were leaking higher every minute. My phone became my lifeline and my executioner. Every buzz brought panic. Every misstep in scheduling was a potential implosion. One of them asked for a weekend getaway. The other booked a prenatal yoga class. I told them both I was working late. That weekend, I sat in my car between both houses and cried for the first time in years. Not because I didn't love them, but because I did. And love, real love, was supposed to be simple, wasn't it? Only now, it was a battlefield I was trying to walk through barefoot, blindfolded, and carrying two lives I never expected to be responsible for, let alone at the same time. People like to say the heart wants what it wants. They never talk about what happens when it wants two things at once, and those two things hate each other without even knowing it. The first time I saw Camille again, I was 6 months into a rocky stretch with Elena. We were arguing more than laughing. Silence lingered between us like a third roommate. And then Camille walked into the coffee shop on 3rd Avenue, and the past came rushing back like a wave that had been waiting just offshore. She hadn't changed much. Still walked like she knew people were watching. Still smiled like she was keeping a secret. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. 1 cup of coffee turned into 5 hours. I told myself it was innocent. I told myself I just needed closure. But Camille never offered closure. She offered a spark. And sparks, well, they burn. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I leaned in. And when she said she still thought about me, still felt something, I caved. It wasn't just lust. It was something older than that. Familiar. Dangerous. That night, I went home to Elena and kissed her with guilt on my breath. The affair started slow. Stolen weekends. Business trips that were anything but. I thought I could control it. I thought I could build walls between the two worlds. But walls crack. Truth leaks. And timing is a cruel god. 3 months into the affair, Camille sat me down and whispered, "I'm late." My stomach dropped. "I took a test," she added, eyes wide but steady. "I'm pregnant." I didn't breathe for a full minute. Camille watched me like a hawk, waiting for the truth she could see hovering just behind my eyes. I lied. I told her I was single. That things with Elena were over. And in that moment, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Not because I lied to Camille, but because I started believing my own lie. A week later, Elena called me into the bathroom. Same test. Same 2 pink lines. Same stunned silence. I remember gripping the counter. My knees went weak. My mind went blank. I nodded and hugged her, told her I loved her. I played the role. I gave her everything, everything but the truth. Old flames are dangerous. They burned twice as hot the second time. And now they were both inside my house, in my life, growing new fires inside their bodies. Fires I had lit. And there was no turning back. Regret doesn't always show up the way you expect. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw things. Sometimes it just sits beside you, quiet and patient, tapping its fingers on your conscience until the noise becomes unbearable. The mornings were the worst. I'd wake up and for a split second forget everything. Just the ceiling, the soft breath of a woman beside me, the warmth of another body. And then the wave would come. Names. Promises. Lies. Appointments. Secrets. 2 wives. 2 children. 1 man on the verge of collapse. Elena was nesting already. Folding tiny clothes, humming lullabies. She had hope in her eyes. She believed in me. That was the knife that twisted deepest. Camille had stopped smiling so easily. Her instincts were sharper than I gave her credit for. One night, she ran her fingers across my shirt collar and asked, "What are you hiding?" I laughed it off. Told her she was home no owner. She didn't press, but her silence said everything. I used to think regret was a moment. A single action you wish you could undo. But I was learning it's more like a virus, it spreads, infects everything. The laughter feels fake. The kisses taste bitter. Even joy becomes suspicious. I'd catch myself imagining the future. Not some grand vision, but little moments. Camille holding our child at the park, Alena singing a lullaby in the nursery. And I'd be in both pictures. Present. Needed. Loved. But even in my fantasies, the women never looked at each other. I couldn't escape it. Every gift I bought for one felt like a betrayal of the other. Every conversation felt timed, rehearsed, exhausting. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I drove. No destination. Just pavement under wheels and my thoughts louder than the engine. I ended up in a parking lot behind the old high school where Alena and I first kissed. I stared at the football field lights and thought about how simple everything used to be. Back then, love was an adventure. Now it felt like a war. And in the middle of it all were two innocent lives, growing day by day. They didn't ask for this. Neither did the women. I was the architect of the chaos. I took out my phone, opened a blank note, and typed a sentence I'd been too afraid to say out loud. I don't know if I can do this. Then I stared at it for a long time before I hit delete. Because the truth didn't matter anymore. Only the consequences. If hell had a smell, it would be overcooked chicken, burnt garlic bread, and the sharp sting of nervous sweat behind my ears. Alena had decided she wanted to meet Camille. She didn't know Camille was my wife. She thought she was my coworker. The woman from the design team I sometimes partnered with on big campaigns. I had told her that lie 6 months ago when Camille accidentally texted during dinner. And now, Alena, glowing, radiant, 6 weeks pregnant and blissfully naive, wanted to have her over for dinner. I just think it's nice, she said, setting the table, to meet the people you spend so much time with. I wanted to throw up. I called Camille to warn her. I used my calmest voice. I told her it was important. I told her not to ask questions. I told her to please, for just one night, play along. She paused. Then, if I do this for you, you tell her the truth. After tonight. I will, I lied. Because I had no idea when I'd tell either of them the truth. All I knew was that dinner was happening at 7 p.m. sharp, and I was about to sit two expecting mothers at one table like a lunatic juggling grenades. Camille arrived on time. She wore something simple, elegant, black dress, hair pulled back, a touch of lipstick. Her eyes scanned the room like a detective sizing up a crime scene. When she looked at me, there was fire in her gaze. Alena greeted her like a hostess on her best behavior. They smiled. Shook hands. Exchanged awkward compliments. We sat. Ate. Chatted. Camille played the part well. Too well. Every time she smiled at Alena, I saw a layer of sarcasm beneath it. And Alena, sweet, trusting Alena, kept gushing about baby names and nursery colors, completely unaware that the woman across from her was carrying my other child. I tried to steer the conversation, but it was like trying to plug a volcano with a teaspoon. So how long have you two known each other? Alena asked. Camille tilted her head. Smiled. Oh, a while. Is memorable. My fork froze in midair. Alena laughed. That he is. Has he always been this charming? Camille asked. Since college, Alena said, squeezing my hand. Interesting, Camille replied, sipping her wine. I didn't know you went that far back. I felt like I was watching two people slowly tighten a noose around my neck, smiling the whole time. When Camille left, she hugged Alena. Then she kissed me, on the cheek, slow and deliberate, lingering just a little too long. Nice family, she whispered. And then she was gone. Alena closed the door, sighed, and said, she's lovely. You're lucky to have a colleague like that. I wanted to fall to my knees and scream. Instead, I smiled. Nodded. Yeah, I said. Lucky. Some names cut deeper than blades. You hear them and something inside you flinches, not because they're unfamiliar, but because you've buried them too deep. After dinner with Camille, something changed in Alena. She started asking questions she hadn't before. If you've made it this far, you already know this story is anything but simple. And trust me, it's only going to get more intense from here. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens when secrets start unraveling, loyalties are tested, and the babies start coming. This isn't just a story, it's my life. And it's about to change forever. After dinner with Camille, something changed in Alena. She started asking questions she hadn't before. Has she ever been to the house before? No, I lied. Do you work late with her often? Only when we are on deadline. She smiled. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. She was unraveling a thread. A few nights later, I heard her on the phone with her sister. Yes, Camille, dark hair, kind of intense. She's really pretty, isn't she? I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, listening to Alena make small talk with a landmine. Pretty. Intense. Memorable. Those weren't the words you used to describe a harmless coworker. They were the words you used when you felt something else tugging at your gut. Names have power. And now, Camille's name was in our house. Spoken aloud. Echoing through the walls like a haunting. I noticed Alena stopped using pet names with me. No more babe, no more honey. Just, can you take out the trash, or, the plumber called. Her tone didn't change, but her eyes did. Camille, on the other hand, started saying my name more. Intentionally. In every text. Every call. Hey, Marcus. How are you feeling today, Marcus? Marcus, I need you to pick up prenatal vitamins. Like she was reminding me of something. Ownership, maybe. Or guilt. One night, she texted. I think she knows. And I'm not going to be quiet forever. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Didn't respond. That same night, Alena said something in her sleep that nearly broke me. I was lying beside her, wide awake, when she whispered, please don't leave. She didn't even know she'd said it. But it shattered something in me. Because somewhere, deep down, she did know. Even if she couldn't admit it yet. Names we never spoke started stacking up like stones on my chest. Camille. Regret. Betrayal. Baby. Lie. Choice. But the worst name was my own. Because I had done this. And sooner or later, both women would say it not with love, but with hate. If there's one thing no one tells you about pregnancy, it's how quickly cravings can turn into emergencies. At 2:47 a.m., Alena woke me up with wide eyes and a whisper. Marcus. I need pineapple. Now. Groggy, confused, and slightly terrified, I asked if she could wait until morning. She didn't even blink. I got up, found my keys, and drove across town like it was a mission from God. The only place open was a 24-hour gas station with bruised fruit and a cashier who looked half asleep and half suspect of why a man in sweatpants was buying 6 cans of pineapple at 3 in the morning. When I got home, Alena was crying softly on the couch. She laughed through the tears when I handed her the cans. I sat beside her, held her while she ate one with a spoon straight from the tin. I'm sorry, she murmured. I don't know what's happening to me. I kissed her hair. Told her it was okay. But it wasn't. Not really. Because I was supposed to be at Camille's the next morning. And she had her own cravings. Ones I had been fulfilling for months, both emotional and otherwise. Camille's pregnancy was further along. A few weeks, maybe a month. Enough that her belly was starting to show. She hated how it made her feel vulnerable, exposed. I tried to reassure her, but she pulled away more often now. I didn't sign up to be hidden, she said that afternoon, sitting on the floor in leggings and a hoodie, picking at takeout she didn't really want. I sat across from her, exhausted from the night before, desperate to keep everything from spinning out. I'm doing the best I can, I said. She looked at me. No, you're doing the best you can to protect yourself. There's a difference. I didn't have a response. Not one that mattered. And then she said it, the thing that cracked the whole foundation. I told my mother about us. I felt the ground shift beneath me. She's happy for me, Camille continued. But she wants to meet you. Soon. I nodded slowly. Okay. And I want to tell her the truth. The whole truth. I froze. Camille leaned forward, her voice low. You're going to have to choose, Marcus. This can't go on forever. And you know that. I did. I just didn't want to face it. That night, Elena cuddled into my side on the couch, a warm blanket over her legs, and said, I think we're having a girl. And I smiled. But all I could think about was how Camille had said the same thing 2 nights earlier. Cravings were easy. You feed them, and they pass. Confessions. They stick. Camille's mother had eyes that could strip a man down to his soul. I met her on a Sunday afternoon. She stood in Camille's kitchen, arms folded, her stare slicing through me like glass. Tall, regal, and suspicious as hell. Her voice was calm, but each word she spoke landed like a loaded pistol on the counter. You don't look like the kind of man who likes complications, she said. I don't, I answered, forcing a smile. Then why are you in one? Camille didn't say a word. She just watched me, arms wrapped around her belly like a shield. We sat. Drank coffee that tasted like judgment. Camille tried to steer the conversation toward nursery collars, appointments, and vitamins. Her mother never took her eyes off me. Where's your family? She asked me bluntly. I hesitated. Not local. And your wife? Silence. Camille stiffened. I felt the air suck out of the room. My what? I asked, playing dumb, stupidly, desperately. Her mother raised a single eyebrow. I assumed a man like you wasn't walking around unclaimed. Camille cut in. Mom. No, I want to know, she said, turning back to me. You love my daughter, but you're here like a ghost. No ring. No future plans. Just whispers and late visits. I stood, desperate to escape. Excuse me, I need some air. Outside, I gripped the porch railing like it could hold me together. Camille followed. Closed the door behind her. She knows, she said. She's not stupid. Neither was Camille. Her eyes weren't cold anymore. They were tired. Sad. She asked me if I wanted to be like her, she whispered. Alone. Raising a child while the father hides. I reached for her, but she stepped back. I won't be a secret anymore, Marcus. I won't raise this baby in the shadows. I opened my mouth to speak, but I didn't even know what truth to pick. That night, back at Elena's, she handed me an ultrasound photo with trembling hands. I think she has my mother's eyes, she whispered. And all I could think about was how my child with Camille might have hers. 2 women. 2 babies. 2 sets of eyes watching my every move, one with blind faith, the other with sharpening doubt. And me. Still trying to live 2 lives with only one soul to split between them. It's strange how lies can nest inside the quietest moments, between the blink of an eye, or the beat of a heart. You think the silence means safety, that maybe no one will notice what you're hiding. But silence doesn't erase a lie. It only amplifies its echo. Elena was glowing more every day, her body changing, her moods like soft waves, sometimes calm, sometimes crashing. But her trust in me never wavered. And that made everything worse. We were at the doctor's office when I heard the heartbeat for the first time. Hers and mine were the only sounds in the room for a second. Then the monitor lit up, and there it was, fast, steady, impossibly alive. Elena squeezed my hand. Her eyes filled with tears. That's our baby, she whispered. I smiled, but I felt like I was drowning. Because just 2 days earlier, I had sat in another room, had another heartbeat, Camille's baby. Camille's eyes. Camille's trembling breath. Both of them had asked the same thing afterward. Can you believe this is real? I had answered yes both times. And that was a lie. Because I didn't know what was real anymore. What kind of man divides his soul in half and calls it love? What kind of man listens to 2 heartbeats and still doesn't have the courage to tell the truth? That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection like it was someone else. I whispered the truth aloud for the first time. I have 2 wives. I've lied to both of them. And they are both carrying my children. The mirror didn't flinch. But I did. That same night, Camille sent me a message. He kicked. 3 words. That was all. But I read them a dozen times. My child, growing, alive, moving. Elena was asleep beside me. I stared at her. At the curve of her stomach under the blanket. At the trust on her sleeping face. There was no room left for peace. Not anymore. I was too far in. Lies don't wait until you're ready. They grow, they breed, they take on lives of their own. And now they were nestled inside both women, beating, growing, preparing to be born. Soon, they'd cry their first cries. And I'd have to face everything I'd been too cowardly to say. The lie didn't shatter all at once. It cracked. A single, jagged line down the surface of my carefully built illusion. And once that first fracture appeared, it didn't matter how tightly I tried to hold everything together, it was only a matter of time before the rest came tumbling down. It started with a missed call. Camille had been having Braxton Hicks contractions, forced labor, the doctor said, but still terrifying for her. She called me in a panic one afternoon while I was at a prenatal class with Elena. I didn't hear the phone ring. I didn't see the message until 2 hours later. I'm scared. Where are you? When I finally called her back, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. That was what made it worse. You're not there when it matters, she said softly. So what are we even doing? I stumbled through apologies. Promises. More lies. But she hung up. Elena noticed my tension during the car ride home. You okay? She asked. I'm just tired. She reached for my hand. You've been working too much. I nodded, but said nothing. The crack deepened. That night, I dreamt I was holding both babies at once. One in each arm. But the room was full of voices, Elena's, Camille's, my own, all layered over each other, accusing, shouting, crying. And the baby screamed. Loud. Deafening. When I woke up, I was soaked in sweat. The next morning, Elena was in the kitchen making toast. She had her back to me when she said it. Who's Camille? I froze. What? She turned around, a piece of toast in hand, face unreadable. You said her name in your sleep last night. My throat went dry. I tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Probably something from work. Right, she said. She didn't smile. Work. She didn't push. But she didn't let it go either. I saw it in the way she moved around me the rest of the day, measured, watching. The first crack had formed. And deep inside me, I knew. The storm was coming. 2 women. 2 pregnancies. And 1 mistake I can't take back. Now the question isn't whether the truth will come out, it's how many hearts it will break when it does. If you think this is complicated now, just wait. Meet me in part 2, where the truth finally starts to crack through the lies.